I need you to go away for a minute. I'm not your girlfriend right now.
I will be again in 2
I am
minutes,
a rage
but
monster.
for now. What's going on, dude?
Not much. Hey, do you want to start with our sweet little ladies for this week?
You go first.
Okay, my sweet little person this week is Whitney Chitwood.
Mm-hmm.
I was on her album release show and in Chicago at the Newport Theater last Thursday, and it hit #1 on iTunes.
It hit #1 on iTunes.
Yeah.
That's dope. Like beating like Jim Gaffigan.
Yeah.
Like all these other guys.
Yeah, it's crazy. And yeah, absolutely hilarious. I absolutely enjoy working with everyone on that show. With absolutely everyone on that show is amazing. So
no, who's the one person you're on the fence about working with?
Myself.
Good answer. Wow, that was such a...
Whitney's my sweet little lady this week.
Whitney's your sweet little lady.
Yeah.
Oh, can't I just say, like, same?
Yeah. She's wonderful. If you're in the Chicago area, you need to go see Whitney Chitwood. And if you're anywhere in the universe, you should download her album, The Bakery Case, on iTunes. Mm-hmm. I believe it's gonna be, like, everywhere. I don't know if it's immediately everywhere, but I know you can get it on iTunes right now.
Yeah. Okay, my sweet little ladies are Slater Kinney. I saw them on Wednesday night. Are you familiar with the band? Slater Kinney? Oh, I'll send you some links. They melted my face off. It was awesome.
Where did you see them?
They were at the Pabst downtown.
Nice.
Yeah, went with my friend Mary, and it was a really good show.
Nice.
There was a time like 5 years ago when I had tickets to see them, and then I wasn't able to go, and I wasn't sure if I'd ever get another chance, and then boom.
There you go. Whew. Who'd you go with?
My friend Mary.
Your friend Mary?
Yeah.
Just Mary?
Just Mary.
Hell yeah. That's
Dana
great.
and Mary, Mary and Dana.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Yep. So that was pretty good.
That's great. Well, good.
Got mine in right under the wire.
I was so confused because you said Slater Kenny? Mm-hmm. And it made me think Letterkenny, which is that TV show. I haven't actually watched it, but it's on...
Me neither. I hear good things, though.
Yeah, same. Wow.
But they're also like coming to the Pabst, so I could see where you'd be like,
oh, are they really? The TV show is?
It's so weird how many different
They did that with
things.
Schitt's Creek too.
Yeah. I wonder what that consists of.
Yeah.
When you say like, hey, people of this TV show, let's bring a stage show across the country. I don't know what that is.
Like Comic-Con style, probably?
Probably. I know Bob's Burgers did it once.
They still, I think.
Yeah. And different shows. And it's...
go ahead. Yeah.
It's like a big thing, too. A lot of actors who I can't help but feel like maybe are struggling financially are like bringing an iconic movie to something like the Pabst Theater and like showing it and then talking about it. Chevy Chase is doing a Christmas Vacation like 2 days after Christmas here.
Oh shit.
And then there was like the dude from The Princess Bride, and that just seems to be a big thing right now.
Yikes.
Yeah, I feel bad.
I was gonna say too, other sweet little ladies are like a shout out sort of is I got to open for Gareth Reynolds a few months ago at the Comedy on State, or a couple weeks ago actually, it wasn't even that long ago, and they just came and did the Pabst on the Dollop, and I was so bummed I had to miss him on Friday.
That's right.
But he's a Milwaukeean. Dave Anthony is also very funny, and I love his hour his special that's on Spotify is really good. But yeah, he's like he's from Milwaukee. I don't think he did, I don't know. I think I asked him if he didn't really do comedy in Milwaukee, but he's from here. Yeah, because, I got to open for him once, too. Did you really? And I feel like... We've both opened for him. That's crazy. We both opened for him. He did a show at Garibaldi. That's fucking crazy. Yes!
A little while back.
Because he knew our friend AJ Grill, who's another local comic. I think AJ had.
Yeah, I think AJ was probably on that. Carter was probably on that.
That's crazy.
But yeah.
Super funny, and just did a show at the. Next time he comes to town, we should go see him together.
We should do that.
Good. Yeah. What a small world. Oh man. Okay, well, we should probably we have a lot to talk about today.
Oh, yes, we do.
Continuing the spooky. Dana's very nervous because I wrote a lot of things in a Word document, and that's usually a sign that I'm having a manic spiral.
When I graduated college, I said I'm done with homework. No, you know what's creepy is today I was like out walking outside at like 10 a.m.
Yeah.
Gorgeous day.
Oh, yeah.
Sun is shining.
Yeah.
Now, late afternoon, fucking foggy as hell.
Cold, chilly.
I mean,
spooky.
You can't see down the street. It's weird.
It's very spooky.
Yeah.
And it's the perfect atmosphere in which to discuss
witches. I didn't come up with this. I'm stealing it, but I just saw this thing online that was like, I just took a DNA test. Turns out I'm 100% that witch.
Oh, Jesus.
That's pretty clever.
It is.
If I had come up with it, that would be our episode title. I didn't.
Oh, that is good.
Witches. Raegan, did you ever dress up as a witch for Halloween?
Yes.
I feel like
I was Professor Trelawney one year.
But ever just like the stereotypical, like...
Also the stereotypical, both, And my mom's favorite thing in our childhood was she had this large it was like a cardboard cutout witch. So like you'd hang it in your house, and then all her joints, like her legs and her arms, had little hingy things, so she could like pose her around. So she would move the witch around the house throughout the month of October and freak us the fuck out with it all the time.
I kind of respect that.
Same. Yeah. I mean, Marsha is a busy single mom, but she made time for fun and
for
spooky.
Hijinks,
for hijinks, yes.
Hijinks ensued. That's good.
Yeah.
I think I definitely was a witch at least once.
At least once?
I think it's legally you have to.
Do you ever watch Bewitched?
No. I'm guessing you did.
Oh yeah.
Because you asked the question.
Wait, I said Bewitched, and that's not what I meant. Can we start?
Okay, I don't know how to help you.
I meant Charmed. Did you ever watch Charmed?
Oh, I don't remember a lot, but I watched Charmed a little bit.
A little bit?
Mm-hmm.
Charmed was an enormous part of my childhood.
Well, how do you feel then? Didn't they just like reboot it with a different cast?
I didn't know that.
I think like it's not, it's not Alyssa Milano and Rose McGowan and
oh my god,
whoever, but I could swear there's another Charmed show.
2018 TV series. Oh my god, I had no idea about this. I gotta check it out.
It makes you excited and not like angry.
It makes me hopeful. I don't know. I guess I'll have to watch it. Like, I feel like my immediate reaction to these kinds of things have so often been like, oh, screw that. Like, I remember when I heard they were making the new Toy Story movie, I was like, no. I was very... what was the other big childhood reboot that they did that I was kind of like, ugh, it's gonna be bad.
Ooh, you're gonna have to narrow that down.
I don't know. There's everything. A lot. There's so much. But there was enough good ones that now I'm kind of always just like, let's see how it is. And like, I'm excited to check it out. Yeah.
Well, and you said Toy Story. There's something about that, not to sound cheesy, but it's so timeless that like, I feel like you could do one in, 25 more years. And as long as it's sort of the same people doing it, that's gonna be good.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
Yeah, I watched Charmed a little bit. Hocus Pocus.
Okay, I did not watch Hocus Pocus. Or as a child, I did not watch Hocus Pocus. I got Hocus Pocus into college is when I actually watched it.
Oh, I mean, same.
Because we're going to go see it, I think, right? Are we all going to go see it?
When is that?
I don't know. a bunch
we'll
of us,
look into it.
A bunch of us lady comics were having a chat about going to watch Hocus Pocus. But all right, that's a personal conversation that doesn't need to be a part of this.
It takes us a while to warm up.
So Hocus Pocus I didn't get into until I was an adult. So it wasn't part of like my childhood Halloween. But I love the movie. It's dope as fuck. Yeah. So how do we wanna?
Well, so the thing that comes to my mind when I think about witches is Salem. And I think that's where our story begins. Today. The Salem Witch Trials.
Yeah.
Now, it's funny because you sent me some articles to read about the Salem Witch Trials earlier, and you were like, this stuff is hilarious.
It's so funny and sad at the same time.
Well, I was gonna say, I was just infuriated the whole time reading about this.
It is both. It is both infuriating, it is all the emotions, honestly. It's America today, man.
Well, that's the thing is it's impossible to read about without just thinking like, oh yeah, that's happening all the time. Oh yeah, this is just a different version of this.
Yeah.
It's maddening.
It is so great.
I'm just so pissed off.
It's the human condition at its finest. It really, truly is all of our best and worst parts of us all kind of mixed into one. Because there are good, what do you want to say? None of the outcomes of the trials were good for anyone. But there are good, there are like certain characteristics of these people that are so relatable. It's almost comforting to know that our fallacies, whatever you want to say, are universal and ongoing, and that we're not failing necessarily in any new way. We're just failing in the same way we've always sucked. That's almost comforting in a sense.
In a sense. In another sense, it's just like, how do we not learn, and why can we not treat people with compassion?
But also, well, the other thing is some of these women, though, are very inspiring in the way they held their ground throughout.
Yes.
There was a lot of, and we'll get into it, there were some women who implicated other women and things like that, but there were also some of them who never after being accused and interrogated for literally months, never once would admit it. Their strength physically and mentally is awe-inspiring. So there are some beautiful parts to this story that are kind of incredible. Not to mention what is her name? Ann Putnam, who is I think probably the most pitiable person in the whole story. Pitiable on the side of the accusers. I think all the victims are obviously the most to be pitied. But,
right.
But on the side of, she's kind of really interesting as well, in addition to everyone else. And probably, yeah, there's so many people I want to talk about. It's so, the crazy thing about this story too is it's just like every character introduces this whole other side of what life was like then that you can replicate or like kind of imagine now even, you know what I mean? It's crazy.
I do, but also like when I read this stuff, it's so hard to imagine. I just have a hard time like thinking about the past and really like getting it through my noggin like this happened. Like, I don't know how to describe it. Like, I know what happened, but like it happened.
It doesn't feel real. It doesn't feel real. Two is that's kind of like one thing about living in the Midwest versus like the East Coast, or even when we had that episode about when we studied abroad, right? Mm-hmm. It's kind of incredibly difficult as an American to imagine times like these unless you are surrounded, like, because where even the Midwest got settled so much later than the East Coast, mm-hmm. and the further you go west, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like when I have personally not been to Boston, but even some of the things I saw in like New York and places like this, or when I went to Ireland particularly, where you see a building that's literally been there for centuries, something that we don't really even have in America. There's very little physical evidence of our history around. It's hard to imagine that. Like when you were in Ireland and I saw the Gael, which is their jail. I don't even think you call it Gael. where all this terrible, horrible torture happened, it was a lot more real because I could walk through the building instead of just having read about it, you know?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So us not really, like, having ever been to Salem, plus there's so little existing. I guess some of the houses do still exist to this day.
Yeah.
I saw that online. But not being surrounded by the environment makes it really hard to imagine that you could hang these people and do this bullshit. It's so crazy.
Let's get into it. What is this?
Okay, so in 1692, in the Massachusetts Bay Colony, which had only been established about 60 years prior to that, so it's very new, 14 women, 5 men, and 2 dogs.
Which, oh my god.
Actually, we might have to do some that's the one thing I didn't really get to, is to figure out what the fuck happened to the dogs. But did you look it up?
We might get to that.
We'll have to Google it a little bit. So 14 women, 5 men, and 2 dogs were unjustly accused of witchcraft and executed. In total, well over 100 people were formally accused of being witches, and countless children and some adults are claimed to have been attacked or enchanted throughout the whole ordeal. And keep in mind that the population, that's basically like the population of this colony at this time is like a couple thousand. Like, it's not a lot. So like this is like a big chunk of who's around that are involved in this. Yeah. These events were precipitated by a combination of religious paranoia and delusion, as well as chaotic, unforgiving living conditions. These are the Salem Witch Trials.
Thank you for adding that last. These
are the Salem Witch Trials. Let's hear, what are our initial thoughts? How are we feeling?
Well, I think it's amazing when we get through this story. So much of it, in my mind, is going to have a lot to do with, can you cut this? No, I guess what I'm saying is, like, I'm surprised to hear that there were men accused at all. And then, you throw in these dogs and you're just like,
what's going on?
What's going on?
Because I think... Oh, go ahead. I don't want to cut you
continue.
off. There's definitely a gender factor here.
Yeah.
However, I think the root of the problem, even what you see today, is the chronic issue is it's not always one thing. It wasn't like the colonists versus women. It's particularly the wealthy and established versus the poor, deviant, more
totally.
They're outliers of society. Mm-hmm. So, and I think that's how those dogs got involved.
You're so close to saying that very seriously without laughing, and then you just couldn't help yourself.
Never. But yeah, because I think that was. We'll get into the tensions because it's interesting. But yeah, the Massachusetts Bay Colony was established in the 1630s by Puritans seeking religious freedom. They quickly and ironically established their colony upon the principles of their religion, persecuting anyone who did not comply or held divergent beliefs.
Interesting.
It was literally, they were like, Quakers, fucking Quakers, get the fuck out of here, Quakers.
You know that situation we just fled? I want that right here,
right now. It's like the classic bullied becoming the bully. It's so depressing. One pillar of their religion, of the Puritan religion, was predestination, which is a very important in the Salem Witch Trials. Predestination is the belief that upon your birth, it is determined when you come into this world, it is known whether you will go to heaven or hell. It's not changeable. You are either born and your whole life will lead you to heaven and there's nothing you can do to change it, or the opposite, which is fucking crazy.
Well, and it's such a weird thing. The Puritans believe that?
Yeah.
Why do you care what you do in life then?
Exactly. And there was a lot of stuff in the articles. There's a lot of players who really get into this and were like kind of crazy, hermetic, insane people. Anne Hutchinson, I believe, is one. But there's almost too much to go into there, where it would like kind of led me away from the actual witch part of things. But it's fascinating to see how these people's beliefs, like how they could manage on a day-to-day basis to like live life believing something like that.
Yeah,
because it does kind of erase, like you said, consequences. Like no action has consequence really if you believe that you're going to heaven or hell, particularly because it was almost like people would spend more of their time looking for signs in their lives and the lives of others to inform them where their fate lied, rather than actually looking at their own behavior. Like that was a huge part of being a Puritan, and believing in predestination, was constantly looking for signs to tell you one way or the other, rather than feeling some kind of ability within yourself to control where you were going to go. You were just always looking outward instead of inward, was the result of that kind of belief.
Well, yeah, and it just reminds me, like, in this case, religion. In the last episode, astrology. It's like, isn't it convenient when I can look at anything else that is, like, maybe at fault for my behavior other than myself. I can't help it.
These 2 episodes are so well timed, honestly. One of the major signs of predestination, of somebody being a good person or, going to heaven, would be economic success and prosperity.
Oh, yeah.
The impoverished were often persecuted and portrayed as evil, was basically... So if you had money, you're good.
You're good.
If you don't, you're bad.
Oh, man. Good thing we don't run society like that.
Right.
At all anymore.
Not in the slightest.
That would suck.
That's right. How dare... Oh, it's so sad.
Yeah.
This is a comedy podcast.
Not anymore.
So that's kind of morally where the Puritans and the colonists were at, but there was also a certain level of reality that they did have to face every day, and that reality is that they were living in horrific conditions. The farmland in Massachusetts was horrible. It was rocky and not great for planting. You could like grow things, but not in mass. Like you could, like in Virginia, when they started to find out that they could grow tobacco and cotton and things like this, and like make a lot of money off of it. Massachusetts was not good for that.
Yeah,
the climate was, of course, cold, and their winters were horrible. There are some stories that seem exaggerating, but there was one account I read online about Puritans being in one of their churches, and the church literally being lifted off the ground in a storm and like thrown.
Well, I mean...
Who knows if that happened?
Well, what was the church made of, you know?
And of course, why I find it ridiculous is, even if it was true, is the Puritans were like, it was the devil.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. It's like, in the context of all this, sure, Jan.
Yeah.
Sure it did.
You mean, it's not really Jan, more so, I don't know, Maribel? I have no idea.
Nabby.
What do you think their names were? They're terrible. Yeah. But yeah, so they had terrible winters, terrible living conditions, and then of course we had the Native American presence. They were frequently at war with the colonists because the colonists took their land. So yeah.
I'd be mad too.
Pretty legit. Most importantly, as the colony grew, though, within itself, social stratification became a huge point of tension within the community between a poor farming class and a wealthy upper class, or wealthy merchant upper class. So they're in an atmosphere of complete fear and tedious, horrible weather / environment. They're literally living on the edge of pure wilderness, and then they have a community where they don't even really trust one another. They feel attacked by the indigenous population, all combined with their insane religion. And this is how it would begin. Truly.
Yeah, can I take this next part?
Please take this next part.
Can I read aloud? That is one thing I miss from school. I want to read aloud.
Popcorn.
Dana.
Yeah.
When you played popcorn, though, like, weren't you just, like, reading ahead, making sure you knew, like, how to read what you might be called out to?
Yeah. I
never
usually read the whole thing, by the time we were halfway through, because it's so fucking slow. Like, I'm sure all of you listening right now are going to sleep.
But so. The Salem Witch Trials started basically because of what happened with these 3 young girls in 1692.
Sleepover gone wrong.
We've all been there, right, Raegan? Okay, so you've got these 3 girls. 2 of them are related to the Reverend of Salem, Samuel Parris.
Yes.
He was controversial. There are widespread reports of him being greedy and callous.
So uncharacteristic for a member of the church.
I never.
Well, I never.
But, I did some reading up on this Samuel Parris, too.
Yeah.
And he's an interesting guy. There are different reports of how he was.
Very conflicting.
But one thing I read is, like, being a reverend was not his first job.
It was not. That's true. Yeah.
What was the first job? Do you remember?
So
I don't.
He was in school to do something. His father died, and his father owned some kind of land where they traded goods that I think they grew something in Barbados and sold it, because that's where his dad's land was in Barbados.
Yeah.
And he eventually went, after kind of his dad died, he was in the colonies at the time. His dad died. He went back to Barbados, and that was his trade, was whatever he inherited from his dad, whatever they were planting and selling. It might have been tobacco or sugar. I don't know.
All I remember reading is that, like, he was
a merchant originally.
Yeah,
basically.
And he was looking for more work. And then when that proved difficult, he was like, you know what? I'm going to become a reverend. And, I just feel like with my religious figures, I don't want them to have chosen being a reverend as a plan B.
Yeah.
Like, I want them to really have wanted it, not just because this other thing proved too hard.
Well, and what's so crazy about it is it seems like he kind of chose to become, he wasn't having successful business doing whatever he was doing, so he chose to do that. However, when I was reading and doing some of the research here, it seemed that Salem had a problem with their reverends. Like,
they couldn't keep them, and then they would always argue
paying
with them.
Yeah.
They wouldn't pay them, and they'd be like, why are you mad?
They'd be like, work for free, give us our spiritual guidance, we're not going to give you housing, what is the problem?
Yeah, why can't we operate like this? But yeah, there was like a long line of Salem reverends that did not work out. No. And then along comes Samuel Parris.
Yeah. He's so fancy. Mr. Parris.
Mr. Parris. So it did not help that there were reports that he already was predisposed to the idea of there being witches.
It was very in vogue. Yeah. And he loved it.
He loved it. And so the Puritans in general were supposed to be like looking for the devil's work out in their community,
which is being the minions kind of the devil,
carrying out that work.
Yes.
And so Reverend Parris would frequently remind his parish that even the 12 disciples had a devil among them, which is him referring to Judas, who sold out Jesus.
Right. So, I had to ask Elijah which guy sold out Jesus. I was like, was it Paul? Was it Paul? Mark? No, Mark wasn't one of the disciples. Was Mark one of the disciples? And he was just looking at me like, Jesus.
Raegan, that's why you're going to hell.
Yeah. Go willingly.
And so basically, you take that perfect storm and you consider everything you were talking about, and you realize, like, this was inevitable.
Yeah. This was a community under fire in every direction with the guy who is the man who is literally supposed to be guiding you spiritually, sowing the seed of suspicion and fear and paranoia. He is obsessed with the idea of the devil being one of you. Could be that's what he's telling them. It could be the person sitting right next to you in this very church. It was like the more you read about it, it's like he actually, I think, goes on to be a lot more passive from what I can tell during the trial.
Yeah.
But and I think maybe it was because he knew, he was like, oh shit.
Yeah, it's like somehow he was like sowing the seeds of discord, telling parishioners like it could be the person next to you. Right. And then when people started to go at each other, he's like, oh, I didn't think that was actually like gonna do anything.
Yeah.
Like, oh,
fuck.
So
backpedal.
So yeah, this was bound to happen, but then it really actually starts getting into motion with these three girls that we're talking about, one of whom is his daughter.
Yep.
Betty Paris.
Yes.
And also his niece, Nabby Williams. I don't know why you would call someone named Abigail Nabby.
Nabby.
Abby is like, can we start a column called Dear Nabby? And then like
Nabby.
whatever the question is, the answer is just like, I've been possessed.
There's a devil among you. Dear Nabby.
Dear Nabby.
I'm seeing black cats everywhere I go.
What does it mean?
That's how Puritans sounded, by the way.
Oh, absolutely.
Dear Nabby.
We know this for certain.
Ye old Nabby.
And then plus another girl, Ann Putnam.
Yep.
And then there was the first bewitching that happened. Okay, Betty and Nabby were playing.
Nabby lived with her. Nabby lived with her Uncle Sam.
Uncle Sam. I want you.
So yeah, like you said, Betty was Samuel Paris's natural daughter. We don't really know why Nabby was living with her uncle. I think there was several articles that seem to suggest that her parents had died. Okay. So she's basically like they're growing up together. They're very young, so they're almost like sisters. And yeah, they're all family. And then Ann Putnam is just kind of on the side.
Yeah, so they're playing something called Venus Glass. Can you talk about what that is?
Venus Glass. Yes. So what they would do, and I want to we'll get into it, but Venus Glass is the act of dropping egg whites, only the whites, into a glass of water, seeing shapes and symbols, and from these shapes and symbols you are supposedly able to divine what your future husband is like.
Look, I know that in the 1600s they did not have access to the kind of entertainment that we have. But are you kidding me? They're playing with egg whites.
Also, what's so fun? Well, and you're starving. You're Puritans in a colony. You can't be wasting eggs on this bullshit. You fucking need that nutrition.
You need that sustenance.
That's not like you or me playing with some, like that's a big sacrifice, actually, to be doing this. There are conflicting reports of whether or not where this came from, like this game, this Venus Glass. Some sources seem to suggest that Tituba, who we're going to talk about more, Tituba was a slave owned by Samuel Paris. Some sources insinuate that she taught them this bit of voodoo, okay?
Oh boy.
However, there's a lot of evidence to suggest that Tituba, I mean, it is known that she had no idea about voodoo magic, and that's all completely fabricated. Yeah. Tituba could have taught them the game,
There's so much that I think after all this was looked back upon and been like, well, this would make sense if
let's put some racist thoughts on there.
Yeah. Well, and then
But yeah, okay, so they're playing this game.
Betty reportedly sees a coffin.
Yes.
No, she fucking didn't. You know, that's something where people looked back and they were like, I bet she saw something that portended this.
She saw a penis. And that's what terrified her.
Girl, I get it. No. And so
yeah, she saw the symbol of a coffin, and she became just apparently like horrified and terrified.
And that's when the fits begin.
Yes.
And basically, like, she has an inexplicable, like, fit.
Lots of them.
Yeah.
It's happening all the time.
So, like, fever, hiding under furniture, just kind of like crying out, screaming.
Barking like a dog.
Barking like a dog, maybe. Complaining of being bitten and pinched by something that she could not see. Weird body contortions, and then going limp. And they would even... So it started then, but then kept going lots of times. They'd even interrupt...
Started with Betty, spread to Abigail. She started to do it too.
Yeah. Oh, please, Nabby.
Nabby, excuse me.
And
Nabby.
They would happen.
Oh, sweet Nabby.
During Samuel Parris's sermons, and then basically it even spread from them. Started happening with lots of kids.
Just like all the kids started to do it.
And funnily enough, they would start to do it right after being asked to do chores. So already to me, it's like case closed, open and shut. Like, this was nothing.
This was nothing. And when they would be asked to participate in religious exercises, there was like a really funny account by Cotton Mather, who was another priest in the colony that was in Boston. And he wrote about this child who would... and he wrote about it really funnily. He was like, yes, it's crazy how every time I ask her to read scripture, she starts barking like a dog. But when she is offered a humorous book, she sits and reads as politely as can be.
It's almost like kids aren't as dumb as we think they are.
And maybe they're super fucking bored because church should not be 5 hours long.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So that's happening.
It's crazy.
You want to take this next part?
Yeah, sure. So this is spreading throughout the colonies, kind of from Salem, but back in Sam Parris's household, he owns two slaves. Two slaves that are mentioned at least, and are important to the story. One is Tituba, who we talked about.
I know her as Tituba.
Tituba, is that? I have no idea.
Okay, that's just what I have always said.
Okay,
yeah.
Tituba. I like that more than Tituba. That sounds like a tit tuba. Hong Kong. Sorry. Okay. But yeah, Tituba, and then John Indian, which makes...
wonder how he got that name.
I wonder. I know. I feel racist even saying it.
Right? Like,
but that was what his name was. That was what he was known as. So John Indian was instructed by a member of Reverend Parris's church, without his knowledge, without Samuel Parris's knowledge, to find out who was bewitching the girls. And there is this method, and apparently there was a lot of these methods, but this is the one that John Indian had to do. John was to make a cake of rye meal with urine from the young ladies, from the afflicted. Yeah. So Nabby and Betty. Betty and Nabby's pee-pee. Bake the rye meal cake thingy in ashes, and then give it to a dog to eat.
Nabby, come pee in this cake.
Come pee on this cake like a dog. And then I guess the dog would go and find the witch, was the idea. So John Indian did this.
And can I interrupt?
Yeah, please.
This is where my thinking comes in. Maybe why two dogs were accused of being witchcraft? Maybe because they were fed these cakes with urine and had an adverse reaction.
Probably. Also, they probably had freaking mange because they're living in the wilderness.
Yeah.
They're like, probably getting rabies and
not
shit.
the best. Yeah. So, okay. So John Indian,
he does
that.
Especially because you have to remember, this is a slave, so a white person is coming to you and saying, do this, you're going to do it.
Yeah.
Right? It pisses his owner off, though. It pisses off Samuel Parris. because he's freaking out that his niece and his daughter are doing this, and it's kind of like these things that he's been saying to his. This is kind of his first oh shit moment where he's been talking about the devil and witches and then
he's like, oh my god,
it's in his fucking house is where it's happening.
He's like, I was just spouting bullshit, but here's something.
Here you go. So let's see. Long story short, Samuel Paris says no more of this. We're gonna get a doctor involved. Doctor shows up. Run some tests. Nothing really came of that first interaction, but eventually he returned, and it was his medical opinion at the end of the day that Nabby and Betty were bewitched. They weren't bad kids. There was demonic behavior.
There was demonic behavior.
Yes.
And then
that's a great medical opinion to have.
Amazing. Not hard to believe that the doctor would come to this conclusion. I mean, these were the people who were like, let's just cut you and let you bleed a little bit, and I think that might heal you. So yeah, and basically the doctor says you're bewitched, and then the entire colony pressures these girls to say who did that to them.
Yes.
And being little girls who are being pressured in ways we don't even know.
Oh, yes, the way we still pressure young young people and inappropriately interrogate young people.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, of course, then they name 3 people who I'm sure their names were spoon-fed right to them.
Yes.
And those 3 people are Sarah Good, Sarah Osborne, don't be named Sarah, am I right? And Tituba, who we were talking about.
Yes.
And of course, so I guess let's just start with Tituba.
Yeah, I think that's a good place to start.
Woman of color, because she's a slave owned by Samuel Paris. So there you go. First of all,
and she's the real OG of this story.
She is, yeah.
And she's so crazy badass. It's awesome.
But of course,
also awful.
They claim that this woman of color, who's not even there of her own volition,
correct,
is demonic.
Correct.
And then the other 2 people, Sarah Good.
Actually, though, to go back to that, it's weird that she was accused as a woman of color.
Well, I found that strange. So
she is the only person of color, as far as I'm aware of, because I didn't read through every single victim and every single person who was accused, but most of the people were just poor white people who were outliers in the community. A witch wasn't really thought of as like a person of color. It was thought of like a deviant Puritan, somebody who fell to the wayside. Like Tituba, even though she prayed and things like that, I don't know that she was fully considered a Puritan because she's not white. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No,
she's an easy target.
Yeah.
However, it is weird that she was targeted.
Yeah, definitely
in that sense.
I don't think that the colony thought she was your typical witch, but as a person of color, as that
it puts
outlier,
her in that spot.
Of course they're gonna name her.
Yeah. Especially being a person of color close to these young girls.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Continue. And
then Sarah Good was a pregnant beggar. Husband worked as a day laborer, sure, but someone who is begging is obviously of a lower economic status.
Yes.
So it's of course they're gonna choose her as well.
Correct. Although Sarah Good might have been, personality-wise, thrown herself under the bus a bit.
Yeah, I love your notes particularly. She annoyed everyone.
She was a total bitch. That was her crime, was being a
She
total
was
bitch.
rude to everyone.
Most rude to those who helped her. Like, from what I could tell from the articles, it would be like, yeah, we'd let her in our house and she was fucking rude.
So we had to let her go.
Yeah.
But frequently portrayed as rundown, broken. So, like, yeah, of course, someone everyone already hates and someone poor.
Yeah.
That's a witch.
She was the perfect outlier. Yeah, so, and then, so the you know, the play The Crucible is about these events. That Sarah's always portrayed, and in other kind of remakes of the Salem Witch Trials, they always portray her as, like you just read, rundown, broken, and dispirited. But it's not characteristic of her at all. If you read her testimony and some of the events about her, like, she was a brass asshole who would show up at your fucking door, and if you didn't give her what she wants, she'd curse you, and if you did give her what you want, she'd curse you again.
She'd curse you again. Game, respect, game.
Game, respect,
Big
game.
fan of Sarah Good.
She's great.
And then you got Sarah Osborne.
Yeah.
Who,
she's really the outlier here.
yeah, absolutely. She's the only wealthy woman out of the three.
Uh-huh.
And then what else would you say about her?
So hers, I didn't really get into the big details because it kind of goes into the Putnam family, and I know that they're important, but for our sake of doing this in an hour and getting to other parts of witchiness, you know, we don't want to get too much into it, but essentially, Sarah was married to somebody who was very wealthy and prominent. Mm-hmm. That man died, and what he wanted to do was leave all of his possessions to him and Sarah's children.
Yeah.
Sarah remarried and basically kept everything for her and her new husband. And that man, her first husband, had been related to the Putnam family, who ruled over the trials. So I think Sarah Osborne got implicated because, basically, for political reasons. It was like, you didn't do what my cousin, they had been, her first husband and the guy were cousins. You didn't do what my cousin, your husband. Oh, your husband. It's incestuous as fuck in New England.
Oh, how could it not be?
But you didn't do what he said, so they kind of brought her in that sense. Also, I think I had read something that insinuated she didn't totally abide by Puritan stuff, but I didn't want to get into it too far, so I left it there. There was definitely other motives because it was very odd for a wealthy woman initially to be implicated in that.
Yeah.
Way, so
the other two, it's like, of course they were.
Of course. So yeah.
So Raegan, what happened next?
So okay, they all get. These three ladies are thrown under the bus by the gals, and they get interrogated, and they have to give testimony. Mm-hmm. And everything might have gone away if it wasn't for Tituba.
Yeah.
Because Sarah Good... It is unfortunate. Mm-hmm. However, it's not.
Well, keep going.
Okay, so let's keep going. Sarah Good and Sarah Osborne, Good and Osborne, both denied ever doing anything. They denied. Yes, they never admitted it. Good did totally throw Osborne under the bus. They're like, that bitch did it. Osborne never implicated anyone, never admitted to it herself, like the good, wealthy lady that she was. But Tituba almost immediately caved to what they were asking to do. A lot of these articles described it as a slave woman looking at her superiors in this society and them suggesting to her and her giving them exactly what they want, just as she was trained to do her whole life.
Yeah.
Is to give these people
like
power.
Her life depended on it.
And it did. It totally did. Of these three women, Tituba is also the only one who gets away. Sarah Good is hung, and Sarah Osborne dies in jail.
Yeah.
Tituba, eventually someone pays her jail fees and takes her away.
She was in jail for 15 months.
Yes. New England jail, not a happy place.
Not at that time.
Still not at this time. But yeah, so they basically, she said that she had all these insane visions where she saw all these crazy animals that walked on their hind legs. She said that she saw a black man that came to her and bid that she work with the devil. So there's more kind of racial things playing into this even from her testimony.
But even, her stories...
We also don't know if that meant black man as in literally a black man, or if it meant black man as in like black magic man.
Yeah.
We don't know what that means.
But, over time, even the details of her stories would change. Like, it started as her saying a black man, but then in later stories it wasn't. Mm-hmm. And... I loved this line that we read. Her testimony was described as being vague and specific at the same time.
Yes. And to serve the purpose of heightening the fear and paranoia. That's what the interrogators wanted, and that's what Tituba did. Yeah, that's what she gave them because that's what she knew they were asking for. Mm-hmm. So, after Tituba's testimony is when the accusations go wild. That's when dozens and dozens of people are being accused every week. It's going
and so many
insane.
people are saying that they had visions and then they try to describe who it was. Yeah. And then someone in the town gets blamed.
Yep. They just point to the next poor freak that they consider poor person they consider a freak.
I mean, this goes on so much. Just to recap what we said in the very beginning was that well over 100 people were accused, and so many more.
Most people.
Yeah, most people, and so many more than that claimed to have been attacked.
Yeah. It was insane, and that was what was so crazy is that. The evidence for most of these accusations was literally just somebody saying, I had a vision of someone or a dream of someone doing something to me.
To the point where even they had to be like, I don't think we can accept dream testimony anymore. Because
that's bad.
Yeah.
It's somebody's saying, I had a dream that somebody did this. It's so bonkers insane.
Man, if you could prosecute people for stuff they did in dreams...
My boyfriend would be in trouble all the time. I sometimes get mad at him for things I dream about.
It's easy. It's
crazy.
To do,
it's very easy to do because you still wake up with that emotion. But that's probably what I don't not believe that some of these victims too weren't having night terrors. I do think. Can you imagine living the way they lived?
Well, and then
in the middle of the woods
with this hysteria that's going on, of course, if someone tells you to read into that dream because it might mean something bigger,
you're gonna fucking do it. Yeah, you will, especially because your own religion tells you to look for signs of who is good and who is evil.
You hear the signs.
It's literally ingrained in your most basic belief that there are signs out there that will tell you someone is satanic or associated with the devil. It's crazy.
Now, I love this next typo. The first trials were held in May of 1962.
Yes. Typo?
1692.
Oh,
I'm say.
Yes.
Boy, they waited a long time. I'd have to imagine all of the accused were dead.
What was that? Would that have been the Clinton administration? Or no, sorry, wait. 1690 or 1962 would have been not Reagan. Kennedy? Maybe. They really cracked down on Salem. That was
they were like no
war on witches.
Longer.
Yeah,
but the first trials were held. The first execution was in June.
So this was happening very fast. Like this was all happening in like a
due
6
process.
Month span.
I don't think so.
Hell no.
And yeah, we talked about how spectral evidence, which is just basically anyone saying they had a vision or a dream, was included. Eventually, they were like, maybe we shouldn't do that.
Yes.
Eventually, Reverend Cotton Mather and his son pled with the court not to use it.
That's an actual reverend, somebody who had at one point, and there are lots of quotes of Cotton Mather, Reverend Cotton, or a minister, I don't know exactly what his title is, but there's a lot of quotes of him saying, look out for witches, look for the devil, blah, blah, blah. They're doing a complete 180. Mm-hmm. They are seeing the product of their insanity before their eyes and going, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, we're gonna ruin our own colony.
Yeah, there's gonna be nobody left. And it was so hard to get it to these levels in the first place. So between that and also the governor's own wife being accused, they were like, let's stop.
And like the article I read like almost mentioned that as a thought. Oh, and the governor's what? And then they were like, maybe not. That's like, I feel like his wife getting accused is like, oh shit, this can even, once it started to really bleed into the wealthy higher ups, they were like, oh, now we're gonna stop.
Just kidding. We were kidding.
We were kidding.
But overall, even when it was done, 19 people were hung. An old man was stoned to death. Several people died just waiting in jail, and those 2 dogs.
And those 2 fucking dogs.
Dust. So take me through the end here.
So there was a lot of. It's kind of like if you've ever been in a frenzy of any kind of emotion, you get so angry, and then there's that moment of clarity and aftermath where you're just so embarrassed. I can't believe I acted that way. That's what happened to this entire community. They had been whipped into a frenzy that kind of it came to its peak climax, and then in the following months you had tons of people coming forward. Initially it was I think the judges, if I remember right, that were the first ones to come forward and say, this is not justice, what we did. Mm-hmm. We condemn them to death without actual evidence.
Almost crazy that they did
publicly admitting their guilt. Yeah. Insane that's not something that happens anymore. Even look at they're still denying.
Yeah, we just lie about it.
Like what is it? The Central Park 5?
Yeah.
4 or 5? 5, yeah. Like that. There's still like people won't admit.
Yeah,
like,
so
the part they played and shit like that.
As awful as this is, I'm just like shocked that they were like, you know what? Made a mistake, owned up to it. And then that's what after they started to do it, that's when some of the people who accused started to come forward. I do know that Ann Putnam, when she was 27, I think, wrote a formal public apology admitting, actually I kind of want to see if I can snag it really quick. Ann Putnam apology, basically saying I made it up. Yeah, villain or victim, like you said.
Yeah, so should we read it?
Go for it.
Okay, this is okay. This was read before a congregation. I desire to be humbled before God for that sad and humbling providence that befell my father's family in the year about 92, that I, then being in my childhood, should, by such a providence of God, be made an instrument for accusing of several persons of a grievous crime, whereby their lives were taken from them, whom now I have just grounds and good reason to believe they were innocent persons. You always had just grounds and good reason to believe. But anyways... And that it was a great delusion of Satan that deceived me in that sad time. I'm taking back everything I just said.
Yeah.
Because she's still blaming religion. Satan. Yeah. Whereby I justly fear I have been instrumental with others, though ignorantly and unwittingly, to bring upon myself in this land the guilt of innocent blood. Though what I said Though what was said or done by me against any person, I can truly and uprightly say, before God and man, I did it not out of any anger, malice, or ill will to any person, for I had no such thing against one of them. But what I did was ignorantly being deluded by Satan, being a stupid fucking girl. Although I will say, like we talked about, being pressured by the officials of your town.
Yeah.
And particularly as I was a chief instrument of accusing of a good wife, nurse, and her 2 sisters, I desire to lie in the dust and to be humbled for it, in that I was a cause with others of so sad a calamity to them and their families. Beg forgiveness of God, blah, 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 blah. So... Still problematic.
Yeah, like can we do a distilled version real quick? If you boil it down, here's what happened and what still happens today.
Yeah.
Okay, these girls have a fit. And did you read about what that might actually have been?
So I just the theory that it was bad behavior, that they were really fucking bored was one theory, because there were multiple theories.
Yeah, let me bring it up really quick.
Was there one where they were actually ill and they had some kind of...
Yeah, okay, here's my understanding, is that...
How rye bread may have caused the Salem Witch Trials.
So rye bread was something that...
You only eat wheat.
That they ate all... I mean, it was a staple.
Okay.
You know, they're not eating a lot.
Did it grow well there?
I think it did, but so did a fungus.
Ah.
And a fungus that infects rye and other cereals, and then can cause some of the same behaviors they exhibited.
Really?
Yeah.
Like so the contorting and the... Were they probably having like a seizure?
Yeah. Yeah. Probably having actual seizures and feeling sensations
on your skin.
On their skin. So there's a theory that they ate this rye bread, had a legitimate reaction, and then of course, as it moves through other people, other kids are seeing that and being like, oh, well, they didn't have to do their chores, so I'm gonna do that. Right? But then it becomes
almost both.
Something that the adults are fixated on because of their religion.
Yep.
They're certain it's satanic, and they pressure these girls into naming people they've already chosen as the
scapegoats.
As the scapegoats.
Yeah.
And of course it's a woman of color, and of course it's someone who's poor and also pisses everybody off.
Yeah. And mostly women.
Mostly women. So of course, it's usually not white men, and if it is, it's because they're poor.
The foundation of Christianity is the idea that Eve invited the devil in initially, and therefore women are more apt to be possessed and influenced by Satan because of that.
And then, of course, as the woman of color, Tituba has been programmed to save her own life by doing what these white men say.
And she's good at it.
And she's good at it. So yeah, she tells some tales. And
she tells a lot of tales.
and admits to this thing. I mean, she's coerced into admitting these things that never happened. Yeah. And then some people friggin' die.
Yeah.
Over it. And I mean, so many parts of that happen still today. People are coerced into confessions.
Very frequently.
Women and people of color are targeted.
Often.
And you know, the idea of like something really sensational will happen in the news. Yeah. And then someone adjacent to it becomes the scapegoat because like for some reason it's more comforting to like blame someone even if they may not be the right person than to just have no one to blame.
Yeah.
Until you find the right person.
Yeah. That's what happened with the Central Park 5. Yeah.
Like, we gotta have a face of this crime. Well, and even if it's not right.
That's the pressure. It's like a twofold thing where the police should not do it, but also a pressure that communities put on your officials. Like in this case it was
very complicated,
but yeah, it's like a simultaneous thing where we want to just rush. We want answers. We want resolution, and in reality, like that's oftentimes the thing that leads to us being even fucking crazier is the impatience.
Not only is the wrong person still out there, but then we're doing this
harming
to the right
innocence.
Person.
Yeah.
So that's basically what it was.
That's what it was. It was absolutely crazy.
My God.
Yeah. It was good times, man. I and you know what's even insane is like I think you could read about this and have 30 different, like, because that's like the general overview, right? But you could read about this for years and have like 30 different versions, because at the end of it, it was a story of a town that is pitted against one another, and everyone's picking sides. That's why you can't read about Samuel Parris, the Reverend, and know if he was a good or a bad guy, because half the town loved him, half the town hated him. There was conflict everywhere. They weren't paying him, though. That's for goddamn shit. No. But like, you know, everywhere you went, everyone had a different story to tell.
But you know what is funny, Raegan?
Yeah.
This is personally how I want to end.
Yeah.
I want to talk about 7 tests they did on people to determine if they were witches. This was the funniest part to me.
Yes.
I think number 1 is something that a lot of us are familiar with. It's like the thing that comes to most people's minds when they think of the tests that were administered. The swimming test. Okay? Accused witches were dragged to the nearest body of water, stripped down naked or to their undergarments, bound, and then tossed in the water to see if they would sink or float.
Jesus
Now,
Christ.
Since witches were believed to have spurned the sacrament of baptism, it was thought that the water would reject their body and prevent them from submerging. So basically, if you were a witch, you would float. An innocent person
It's Monty
would
Python.
sink.
It's Monty Python.
An innocent person would sink, but a witch would bob to the surface. Now, I don't even know how true this is. The victim typically had a rope tied around their waist so that when they sank, they could be pulled from the water. But it wasn't
So it's more
unusual
like water. It wasn't unusual for
accidental drowning deaths to occur. So it's basically that thing where, like...
It's waterboarding.
Well,
but with drowning.
You couldn't win, because if you didn't drown, that meant you were a witch. And if you drowned, you drowned.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this happened a lot.
What is witch swimming? It says something about witch swimming derived from the trial by water.
Oh, yeah. An ancient practice where suspected criminals and sorcerers were thrown into rushing rivers to allow a higher power to decide their fate. And it was done, like, well into the 18th century. But then they were like, you know what? We gotta stop doing this.
Mankind used to be very metal.
Now we get to the prayer test.
All right.
In medieval times, they said that witches were incapable of speaking scripture aloud. So they would have accused witches read from the Bible, usually the Lord's Prayer. But if you made a mistake at all, you were a fucking witch.
What? That's just a memory test.
Well, it's not even recite. It's like literally reading.
Oh.
So basically, if you were illiterate, if you were not the best reader, if you were just nervous about the fact that people were deciding your fate.
If you were bad at popcorn.
And you made one mistake.
You're a witch.
You were a witch.
Holy shit.
And it's all bullshit. Even a successful prayer test didn't guarantee you'd be acquitted.
Oh my god.
So
they're looking for any reason, man.
Yeah. Touch test, number 3.
Ooh.
Victims of sorcery would have a special reaction to physical contact with their evildoer.
Oh my god.
So, AKA, if you really wanted someone to be convicted as a witch, they could touch you and you could just act like you were having a reaction.
Oh my god. These are so beyond belief. Beyond...
Yeah.
A non-reaction signaled innocence, but if the victim came out of their fit.
Oh, so it's actually also the opposite. So, like, a person would be having a fit.
Yeah.
And then if the accused touched them and the victim stopped...
That implicated you as well.
So, again, it's just acting. Like, I could pretend to have a fit, and then if my accused touched me, I could just stop. And it'd be like, oh... You put a spell on me. Witch cakes we talked about.
Oh, is this where you pee?
That's where
my pee cake?
That's the pee cake.
Awesome.
That a dog has to eat.
Okay.
Witches' marks. Witch hunters often had their suspects stripped and publicly examined for signs of unsightly blemishes that witches were said to receive upon making their pact with Satan. The devil's mark, as it was called, could supposedly change shape and color and was believed to be numb and insensitive to pain. Prosecutors might also search for the witch's teat, a third nipple, allegedly used to suckle the witch's helper animals.
Oh yeah, they all thought they had familiars, right? They had like little demon animal companions or whatever.
Yeah, sure, goats aplenty. But so basically, if you had a mole or a birthmark or a third nipple, as some people do,
covered in third nipples,
you were a witch. And yeah, I have so many witches' marks or devil's marks in that case. Yeah. So not great.
Not great.
Number 6, pricking and scratching tests. If witch hunters struggle to find obvious evidence, they might resort to a ghastly practice of pricking as a means of sussing it out. Witch hunting books and instructional pamphlets noted that the marks were insensitive to pain and couldn't bleed, so examiners used specially designed needles to repeatedly stab at the accused person's flesh until they discovered a spot that produced the desired results.
Oh, God.
So that's terrifying.
Oh, God. Just poking you for like 8 hours.
Until they're like, oh, there's one spot that didn't bleed as much.
That's because I can't feel anything anymore, you fuckface. Like, Jesus Christ.
I've already lost enough blood.
I've lost blood and my body's just given up. Oh, God. Okay. All right.
And then the last one is incantations, also known as charging. This test involved forcing the accused witch to verbally order the devil to let the possessed victim come out of their fit or trance. Other people would also utter the words to act as a control, and judges would then gauge whether them saying it had any effect. So, like, you could say, as I am a witch, I charge the devil to let this person come out of their fit. And it's basically like what I said before. It's acting.
It's like, just acting, yeah.
If you wanted that person to be convicted as a witch, you would stop when they asked the devil to stop.
But also these are kids who they've kind of found themselves in a play. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Yeah. Where you don't really know what's happening, but everyone around you thinks that they're a witch, so
everyone's enthralled. Let's put on a show.
Yeah, let's put on a show. And then you don't understand the consequences of what you're doing because you're a child. Mm-hmm. You don't know. Oh, man. That's fucking... Oh, those are fucked up. Those are really crazy.
Man, oh, man. Yeah, just by the...
We'd both look at
marked rule. Yeah. Look at our arms. Just...
Yeah. Covered in moles. Covered in riddled with moles.
Riddled with moles. Yeah. So what we're saying is we're witches.
We're witches. You're witches. I wish we had more time to talk about people in modern times who really do believe they are witches.
I know, right? Maybe there's actually a significant population
that are like, I identify as a witch, which is crazy, but
that's a tale for another time.
Mm-hmm. I think we have to end it here. But can we just quick do our tip of the week? If you our tip of the week for anyone who wants to know how to get laid. What's your witchy tip? What's your love potion? What's your love spell? What's your witchy tip? Your witchy tip.
I don't like that, Raegan. Just probably call me Nabby.
Call me Nabby already. For me, just poke me with a needle all, just my entire.
Check me for
throw
moles.
me in a river tied up, and then see if I float. I want to have sex with you. If I sink to the bottom, I'd rather die.
Boom. This has been Sweet Little Ladies, Witch Edition.
Don't get accused.
Don't get accused.
Bye.